Hi, I'm Trevor Lund of RevTrev.com, and in today's episode, we're again talking with Elaine Armstrong. And if you've missed the last two episodes, you can check them out at RevTrev.com or on YouTube at RevTrev TV or on iTunes. Just search for RevTrev TV and you'll be able to subscribe right there too. And Elaine is the inventor of BikeBack, and we've been talking to her about her journey to get this product to market, and how God has really intervened with divine appointments, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more today. But really, I want to also focus on the times of just favor you've experienced, and it's got to just be God, just
Absolutely.
yeah. So I know when we talk about favor, I just want to give one warning to people who are listening is you've got to watch the condition of your heart, because when we uh, anytime you hear the word of God, the parable of the seeds takes place. It can fall on rocky soil, it can fall on good soil, it can fall on thorny soil. It can, you know the parable, and that's just not when we first hear the message and get saved. It's every time we hear the word of God. And what can happen sometimes when you hear someone getting favor from God, what it should do is encourage you. The favor that's on her is on you too. And what you need to watch for is just any kind of attitude that says, well, why does she have that kind of favor when I've been doing X, Y, or Z? Because it's not a matter about that at all. We're to rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. And when we hear testimony, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And when we hear what God is doing, we're inviting him to do it again. And so if you hear something that Elaine says that encourages you and you say, man, I want that, then, take it to God and say, God, you did it for her. You can do it for me. And let it be just an exciting time. Elaine, how has God shown you his favor? And how have others seen his favor on you?
It's just been incredible. I think part of it is that God has taught me to be really bold, and I've really had to come out of myself, and I've really stepped out of the old me and into something totally new.
Hmm.
And just this commitment between me and God that I was absolutely going to go for it. He'd shown me a direction, and I decided I was going to throw myself 100% into it. And in that, I would go after people that were unreachable to me. So, having seen an episode of another program about products getting to market and things like that, I watched on TV an episode with this couple who were with a branding agency in London. And I just loved the way they worked, I loved the way they spoke. And the next day, all I could think about was this branding agency. And I thought, I have absolutely nothing to lose if I pick up the phone or send them an email.
Hmm.
And I decided to approach them and say, look, I'm going to be on this TV show myself, and I would really be interested in talking to you about branding my product. Can you help me in any way? And they came back to me, and short of the long story, they invited me up to their offices in London. Um, and doing my research further, I discovered that they were one of the top three branding agencies in the whole country that had some very, very major clients. And I found myself on a one-to-one with the CEO in his London office, beautiful office. He showed me all around the office and just gave me his time and advice and his phone number and said, stay in touch, anything you need. He gave me contact after contact. It was just absolutely incredible. I actually felt like I wasn't real throughout the whole meeting. I felt like I was floating. And he concluded by sending me an email saying, I totally believe in you, your product, and the global potential for your brand, which
Wow.
was just an incredible boost. I mean, every entrepreneur wants to hear that from somebody who's in the business.
Yeah.
It was just incredible favor. God opened a door. And to cap it all, as I'm leaving the office with Bike Back, the prototype, and a bike in tow, I pass a couple of his employees, his PR woman, who rushes back into the office and says to him, what is that product? Where can I get one? I need two. And he emailed me that as well, which was just so exciting and encouraging.
Wow.
I would encourage anyone out there just to absolutely go for it. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? If you never call, you'll never get to speak to someone. If you call them and they don't see you, you're no worse off.
And that's a big thing for a lot of people, is that it's there's such intimidation there. Like, what do I have to offer? What do I really have any kind of way to make a difference here? Like, I know God is for a long time in my life, he was kind of pushing me towards writing. And I would go into the bookstore and just like, what book hasn't been written? Like, what am I supposed to do? And for me, it took just an encounter with God just to break that entirely. Well, it was just actually, it was yeah, I won't get into my story, but anyway, it was someone totally unintentionally came up and shared a vision she had, and she no idea when she shared that vision with me that it just broke that entirely off me. And it's just like, okay, well, there are things I've got to learn. There's things I've got to do. I've got to study. I've got to write. Like, but
I think a lot of people misunderstand that God has equipped you for every work that he intends you to do. The equipping happens almost simultaneously. I mean, we have everything in Christ, but not always before we start. And I think it's such a shame that so many people think that they have to fill their toolbox before they can even take a step outside the front door. And it's just not so. If you take a step, God will show up. He just will.
That's an awesome word. That's the word today for people. Which is why we're doing Rip Trip TV this way without the green screen, but that's coming. Talk to me more about the product. I see that you've got your somehow, like, you're getting a prototype, it's makeovers in Hong Kong now, or how long ago was that, or what's
okay? It's been quite interesting. Because it's been quite slow in recent times, in that it is taking time, and that in itself is a faith journey. The product did go out to Hong Kong with a potential client, and they came back and said that yes, they were interested, but it wasn't the right time for them. Their trading figures were down, particularly, and so recently it's been totally redesigned by a product designer within the organization that I signed up with. If we go back to the previous episode, the nail salon lady, her husband, his team is now totally redesigned Bite Back. And there is another story about God's guidance in that I was working with a product designer. And this is what I mean about taking a step and God showing up. I took a step. I found a product designer through She's Ingenious organization of women inventors and so on. And I started working with her, a lovely lady. We were getting on great. And I commissioned her verbally, and then went to the bank with £2,000 in cash, which a friend of mine who so believed in the product had said she would like to lend me. So I went to the bank, and I'm standing in the bank queue with all my transfer filled out, paperwork filled out, ready to give to the product designer. And as I'm standing in the queue, I hear God literally screaming on the inside of me, if you will, no, 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 no. And I was like looking around me, and I just thought, I know that voice. There is no way that I can do this transaction. And that verse, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. I totally took myself out of that queue. I went back to my bank. I paid all the money back into my personal account and walked away going, well, I don't know what you're doing, God, but I know your voice, and you said no, and I have obeyed. That's all I know for today. The next day, or maybe even that evening, I get a phone call from my friend who said, I'm really, really, really sorry, but that money that I was going to lend you, it was, first of all, was 2,000, and then there was going to be another 8,000. I can't lend you any more money because something's come up within the family. And I said, you know what? I can give you your money back.
Mm-hmm.
And that night went over to her house or the next day, I can't remember, sorry, exactly. But within 24 hours, she had her £2,000 back in cash. And I no longer had the offer of the rest of the money. So, that was just another example of how God guided me. Because actually, at the end of the day, the product has been designed for nothing.
Right. Wow.
It was going to cost £10,000. It has cost nothing.
Wow.
Because of the nail salon lady and her husband. Now you really have to listen to the other episodes, or this is double
There's good track over it. It'll happen. They can go to iTunes just to download them all. Something you said there about something that God's really been teaching me is that, Jesus only did what he saw the Father do. He only said what he heard the Father say. And the thing I've been challenged with is trying to live the same way. And I fall so far short of that, but
me too.
But I just love the your life is an example. Your journey is an example of doing that. That it doesn't make sense. Like you had one option in front of you, and you had the means to do it, and yet you're his sheep. You heard his voice, and you responded to that. And it's as we obey, Jesus said, he no longer calls us servants, he calls us friends. And the difference is friends know what he's doing. And as we go along in this journey, we begin to see more of what God's plan is. And I already hear that in how you're describing things. You're seeing his plan come about that you didn't see at the beginning of this process.
No.
What
I still don't see. We're not there yet. We're not in the shops yet. I still don't see, but I know he's going to do it.
Yeah.
I know.
That's awesome. Talk about tell me just about how you're not there yet, and how do you stay encouraged in the process? How do you, like, there's got to be times when, is this ever going to happen? Like, is that like you expect a phone call and it hasn't come yet? How do you stay strong in those kind of situations?
I think one of the things is that Bike Back has not become an idol for me. God is still my number one. And if he said tomorrow, lay it down, I would. And I think that's very important, to keep your business and your worries and all these other things can override his importance in your life. So I've always had it in its right place, number one. But yes, at times I am discouraged, and at those times I really press into God and ask him. And then the most extraordinary things do tend to happen. I mean, I have been, I guess I went through a bit of a down period recently that just seems to be months and months and months with nothing happening. The TV show came out, people were emailing me, where can I buy your product? Where can I buy it? And I haven't got a finished product. And, that began to eat a little bit. And then it just so happened that my mother turned 80 and I was hosting a party for her at our house, and we ran out of fridge space. And I thought, I'll just go and get one. Often they have them advertised for free if you just pick them up. Yep. Found one in the local mag for very cheap, and phoned the guy and went over to meet him to go and pick up this fridge. And as I'm there chatting to him, turns out he's a business person. We get talking. He says, let's go and have a Costa sometime, because I think there's a lot we can talk about, and there's a lot of things here that I'm interested in. I've had a look at your website, blah, blah, blah. All well and good. That was great. Got my fridge, had a great party. A few days later, I get an email out of the blue through my website. Hi, I was just talking to the guy that sold you the fridge, and we would like to introduce ourselves. We own a factory in China, and we're very interested in what you're doing. And we just happen to be in the UK at the moment, and we live in a village 20 minutes from where you live. Would you like to come and have coffee with us and chat over a few things?
Wow.
So just last week, when I was feeling in a bit of a dip and a bit of a valley and what shall I do, I end up in somebody's living room in a village 20 minutes from here, talking not just about Bike Back, but some of the other ideas that I have. And it looks as though that we're going to go into partnership together and start manufacturing some of the other products that are much more straightforward in many ways, one in particular. And I can't even talk about it at the moment, but
that's awesome.
Watch this space. But, you know, I bought a fridge, and then it was only tonight that I had this complete revelation. If we go back to episode 1, and I told you about the empty fridge,
yeah,
and God saying to me about it's better to be empty and switched on than to be full and switched off.
Yeah.
I bought an empty fridge. I just think, you know, God's just so incredible.
That is so awesome, Elaine. We're gonna have to end this episode, and when we come back, it's I just can't wait to hear what you've got to say next time, because there's a few more questions that have come up that I want you to address. And thank you. If you want to connect with Elaine, go to her website, bikeback.co.uk. Check out what she's doing there, and leave use the contact form there to give her your feedback. She'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Elaine. And
you're very welcome.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode has been brought to you by Expectancy Press, resources that impart hope and empower destiny. When you choose to purchase products from expectancypress.com, you're supporting the work of Expectancy Ministries. Are you a little afraid to do what God's told you to do? Get a copy of How Big Is Your Butt by Trevor Lund today.